Hi there, Dominic here, Dr. G, and here I'm with Flex Omar here.
Yep.
And we're people. We want to talk about human connections. We're good friends, and today I want to talk a little bit about our communities we've kind of built up since we moved to the city. First I want to mention that I came to the city and I had to build up a medical community here, and it's about community building, and that took a time. They didn't teach us in medical school. And then I had another community of patients, which initially it was a little slow kind of understanding where, what my line was as a doctor, with the patient. And then I learned that I grew so much more when I was able to understand, and they would see things in a different perspective that I would never see. And finally, our common community, we have a lot of international friends, from 40, 50 different countries and I've just went to the amazing gala earlier this week. We're fall in Chicago here. Look at the beautiful yellows and oranges and greens outside. It's quite nice. So, Flex, our common community, can you comment a little bit more about how you came up to build up your community in Chicago?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was around 2014. I had a meeting with one of my good friends, Emil, and now he's a board member of mine.
Okay.
Yep, and friend of yours as well.
It's a common social community here.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we discussed was
He's my financial planner.
He's your. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. All right.
years.
Full disclosure.
I give him a
He's
plug,
doing
right?
okay. Emil gets a plug.
Yeah.
And basically, when I met with him over lunch, the discussion was around, having the right network support system, and we both were looking at each other. We're in good places in our lives, but we got tired of going to networking events and so on. And he basically talked about this gentleman who is like a biz dev guy at a consulting firm, like a director level, and he would say that this gentleman does maybe like 50 or I don't know what the number, but it was absurd. A big number of meetings, every day, and then he'll go back to his office and have his secretary shoot out emails, introducing, people to each other. So I thought this is very interesting. Let me go see what is this all about. And he introduced me to the gentleman, and sure enough, after lunch, I probably had at least 50 or introductions. But they were all like meaningful introductions, people that I wanted to meet, other business owners, and that's what we've been doing for the past couple of years. Just introducing people via email, and just keeping our network small but lean.
There you go. Yeah. Oh, that's great. It's a wonderful community, and I think Flex has built up this massive community of people that are now have a bigger social mission. Part of sort of blended the friends. There's sort of a limit sometimes what you have with a professional relationship. Some people said don't do business and pleasure together, but there's a way of doing it so it makes sense. There's a lot of common friends that we know, and very influential that has a bigger social mission right now. Mm-hmm. And right now, you can also develop a common bond with people in different neighborhoods. It's a city of neighborhoods in Chicago, and some 70 neighborhoods that...
77.
77, excuse me, I stand corrected. 77. There we go. We'll find out the answer together. We'll figure it out. So, 77 neighborhoods. So you moved from what neighborhood of the 77 to the others? You were over in this cool area in Lincoln Square, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So I recently moved from Lincoln Square to Lincoln Park, and the amazing thing about moving is it's the best opportunity to declutter. and you kind of like look at all the stuff that you have and really start evaluating, do I really need all
When in
these?
doubt, throw it out.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just incredible the amount of things that I got rid of. But moving to
It helps to have an extra set of eyes. Sometimes your significant other, in case I was moving, my brother, he just got through med school. We were coming from Cincinnati, and he had I had all these medical texts. He says, "Do you really need these? You're not. You can go online." So I had to throw them out.
Yeah.
Declutter.
No, no, absolutely. So just moving to the new neighborhood in Lincoln Park was incredible, and now you have an opportunity to kind of discover and meet new people. Check out the restaurants in the area. But I'm pretty new, so I'm still discovering. But there's a lot of energy. Around there's a lot of young people. So I think it's
a more vibrant area.
Yeah, it's definitely a good fit.
Yeah, a little closer to the lake too for the lake events. Yes, very nice. Yes, and I just about building communities. Gloria Steineman, My Life on the Road, she wrote, you have to understand before you go to other countries, you have to understand your own country. And I just went on a little trip myself. We're talking about recent moves here about connecting in different neighborhoods, and I think you can explore your own city and time to reflect and go to different neighborhoods, and that's some way to grow. And I just had a week off. My secretary had to go out of the country for a couple weeks to Jordan, and I said, okay, I'm going to take 1 week off and go on a trip to Colorado. So I ended up doing the most I've ever driven, 3,000 miles. When I was 19, I drove across America with my brother, who was going to a medical slot over in Stanford, and I drove across America with him, and I learned it was a different era. We were using maps. And now I had virtual navigation, and it was a different experience in that regard. But I met people along the way. I ended up doing a little show out of it, interviewing people from Omaha and in different parts of central Nebraska. And I learned about the cranes and all the birds over there that they were bragging about in Nebraska. I never knew. And in Colorado was gorgeous. And you're expanding your perspective. And I think sometimes you get a little bit of human intelligence. I was in a little problem. I was in an electric car. I have a Tesla. And along the way, someone who'd done 50,000 miles and did all the electrical stops, he told me about this new app called PlugShare. 2 days later, I ran into trouble. I pulled up the app, and I found a way to plug in. So you can't get these things on the web is my point. Human intelligence, human connection is what we really talking about here. So I want to also, I was just amazed. I want to talk go a little deeper dive into Mala here. Mm-hmm. I was very impressed, truly impressed at what you put together. Earlier this week, you had the 3-year gala, and I've seen this grow through the years. And you had people that were supporting it that weren't Muslim. And there was a lot of course, Muslim perspective there. And I could see some people that I've seen over the years that were stepping up here. But it was a wonderful collaborative community, and it was very upbeat. Mm-hmm. I just one way I want to dive a little deeper is you have hundreds of stories. You want to just tell briefly about your story of assimilation. It's a lot of the stories that you did StoryCorps, several hundred stories in connection with National Public Radio. You recorded these stories in the Library of Congress. Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit about your own story of assimilation in this community and the other maybe some of the 100 stories that you've cataloged, or what stands out?
Yeah, absolutely. In regards to my story, I mean, I came from Abu Dhabi in 2000 to Chicago. Well, my journey actually begins in Somalia, in present-day Somaliland. So I was born there.
It was under strife at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me the conditions in Somalia.
Well, we had a dictator that came into power, okay. And he was very oppressive, and he made life really hard for everyone from my clan. And we decided, you know what, we had to get out of there, and we had the opportunity to leave about 4 or 5 years before he went out and did genocide and ethnic cleansing. But I was fortunate enough to live not too far in Abu Dhabi and travel to Somaliland as much as possible. After the war, there was a civil war, and help out in any way possible. Coming to Chicago was incredible, and it was a great fit for me because even the way the city is designed, it reminded me a lot about growing up in Abu Dhabi. We have the equivalent of what is a Lakeshore Drive.
Yes.
In Abu Dhabi, we call it the Corniche.
The
Corniche.
Corniche.
Yeah.
Corniche.
So yeah, it's a
Okay.
French word. Yeah.
And just
Yeah, but
Corniche is
I don't quote me on this,
Okay.
but I think it just basically translates to like by the water or something
the
like
water.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Beautiful drive up.
it's a beautiful drive. I mean, it's just like how on a Lakeshore you have different parks. People can run. So it's similar. A lot of physical biking, joggers. Not as much as here, just because it gets really hot.
Yeah. Well, in June there's an explosion of activity on the lake. We're here in Chicago, right here in Lincoln Park neighborhood. He moved to my hood, around the corner. And LA, you think they're the capital of the world. Come to June in Chicago. There's this pent up. Everyone says this. Bikers, runners, joggers, pent up excitement to get outside in the warmth after a tough winter. And so, the lakefront, actually, Lincoln Park is the second largest park in the country next to Central Park. And it has a lot of, sounds like we're a little tourism. A lot of people from Chicago are proud of the city.
No, absolutely. And it was very easy. It was very easy for me to assimilate because I grew up in a metropolitan city. I definitely had my first share of culture shocks. Even though I've seen carnage and war in Somalia, ironically, I've never seen anyone get arrested. And the first time that I saw someone get arrested was at my first visit at a McDonald's. So I was just waiting to get this Big Mac, and then the guy behind me just literally just gets tackled by Chicago police, and I was a little taken aback. I was like, "What is going on here?" Yeah, welcome to Chicago, So that was interesting. And then I lived on the south side at Hyde Park. It was very interesting for me because that was the first. It's intellectual, community, but from a perspective of someone that's just coming to, the U.S., the first thought that comes to mind is I barely see any white people. What is going on here? So, and then I met a close friend of mine, Bashir, and he's dating his current wife. At the time, and she lived by Fort City Mall, so we traveled there, and that's a predominantly Latino neighborhood, and I felt like I was in Mexico, so I was really, really confused early on,
You're right. Chicago does
in Chicago, but this was before Google Maps, so I really started doubting my geography skills. I thought we stumbled into Mexico like very, very quickly, and then coming to the north side, I just felt that there's a bit more diversity, and then working on the west side of Chicago, really enabled me to see the city fully. But Chicago people are very, very welcoming. There's a lot of immigrants from all over the world, so for me assimilating was really not hard. I'm really big on relationships. I'm very, I come from a diplomatic.
social, yeah.
I'm social. I come from a diplomatic family, so I can make friends anywhere, So for me, it was an art. I know for some people, assimilation can definitely be a struggle, and but to me, but also, I came in 2000. A year later, September 11 happened.
Yeah.
So now, I had a little bit of an identity, crisis because I'm also Arab and, African, So I saw the backlash that was happening, against, Muslims. And when people would ask me, hey, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Abu Dhabi, but I'm African, as well. But I consider myself African American now, So, and then as some of my African American friends would say, You can't really say that because then that you take away from the African American, experience. So I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. But then, what's interesting is now, what was the movie Black Panther?
Yeah.
It came out, so it's like a reversal, of the roles. I see a lot of my African American friends wearing African,
Well, there's
clothes.
sort of sometimes an identity issue I hear a lot with immigrants too, is they don't identify with their country of origin as much, and they
Yeah.
don't identify fully with America.
Yeah.
And it's a little difficult sometimes, but Flex found a way to fit in. Fit in. I go downtown, I go out, sometimes, and actually what I was impressed by was Flex. A few years ago when I had a little more time to go out, I've been writing a book, I've been hibernating a little bit, but he would know, would get me past the rope. He would know the people with the ear, the bouncer, everyone at the clubs, everywhere in the city. She'd go, "Oh, Flex," and then we'd get by. So he knew a lot of people here, and I could see he got well connected downtown. So is there any other individuals that had an interesting assimilation story? And we're talking about human connections and how important it is to have real human connections for support, for any goal you have, whether it's a health goal to make you more healthy, a success goal, any kind of goal. And what kind of difficulty or issues did you see?
Well, I can talk about my mother. She came in '94, so
Okay.
95.
Came, like,
Yeah,
6 years before you.
yeah, about
Okay.
5 years before,
5 years before.
I did.
Okay.
So the assimilation process for her was a little bit more different. She, most of her friends, over here that she got to know were more in terms of like the religious community. So the relationships came more, from the mosque. And that was her identity. So but then she also had a passion for giving back and helping out. So she worked with different non-for-profits and helping refugees come in. The challenge for her was her brother that was living over here. Basically controlled everything that she did in her life, and she was not able to break away from that until recently. And you met him at the hospital because recently she had complications of pneumonia, and she had to be in the hospital. But when we moved to Lincoln Park and my mom lives with me, we cut him off. He's and I stressed the importance of boundaries, and if she's gonna get better, she'll have to basically cut out everything that stresses her out. And he was a big major stress factor, and now she's back on her feet. And so I think cultural identity sometimes might hinder, assimilation, especially when you're new to a country, you're still trying to discover what it means to be, American, but then also what it means to be, wherever you're from, European, African, and so on. But the only way I think you can, get past it is by being open-minded and having different experiences, and honestly just travel. And a lot of immigrants, when they come to the U.S., end up gravitating to their comfort zone and where their community is, and sometimes they don't even step outside that neighborhood, and that basically you create a bubble for yourself. And then with social media, and it just you're stuck in it.
Well, I think that's a very good point. I think social media is it real? All this talk about people, and now a lot of celebrities don't want to wear makeup because they're trying to and show their on their social media profiles or anything, show who they truly are. Because we live in this fantasy world of your best pictures on vacation, your best pictures how you're dolled up and everything. Is that real? No, it's not real. And I think, when I talk to, not all just young people are social media, young 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Talk to everybody and I say, it's better to have that human connection 1,000 times richer, because that person can grow through the years if you make that contact. There's an old saying, you want to reap for years, plant wheat. Want to reap for tens of years, plant trees. Want to reap for hundreds of years, plant people in your life. I just love Chicago because I walk down the street and I see someone that I knew in another life. Yeah. I still have that connection. I've developed that relationship. They're doing some other new crazy entrepreneurial thing, and it's fun. We chat, and I learn more about that. So they can introduce you to other experiences, other places, other concepts that you cannot get online. You think you have all the answers when you're researching that one question on a health perspective, and I know how that works. That doesn't always work out. You think you have cancer. Come to me. I go, okay. You're not asking the right questions. A doctor can globally look at you, just like any wise person can tell what you need. But you're stressed out at home with your computer, connecting to friends, and researching what you think you need in life. Until you get out there and experience, you might have a whole world out there what you need. But I want to go back to one other thing about your mother and about one other family issue here. Mm-hmm. I see this among my patients sometimes too, is that the family is leaning on them. It sounds like you were open-minded yourself to American culture and the way it should be and everything. That open-mindedness, a lot of my immigrant friends say that's incredibly important to them, that freedom. Mm-hmm. Now, the balancing the family is always difficult. And I'll tell you, the negative thing about America in general sometimes is that we're not connected to family as much. And I see the social isolation that takes its toll, mm-hmm. especially on my older patients. They don't know how to make friends in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s. And I have to kind of educate them. It's like casting a net to make friends. You cast a wide net, you give more than you receive for a while, you get yourself out there. And the people that give back in the way that you like, maybe they can be your friends or your acquaintances, but you got to try. Mm-hmm. And there's an effort. But getting back to your mother, you had the wisdom with experience, and you had to say that one family member is not healthy for your mother. Mm-hmm. That's a fine line, and it's difficult, But I see this going on too, and I think that's the human connection and seeing, being open-minded and just being down to earth and understanding what you need or your friend or your family member might need, is important. So that's great. So, any other wishes you want to take, Mala, in this effort?
Well, in regards to Mala, Mala's a storytelling platform. The importance for me right now is to collect as many, stories as possible and really show the diversity in our community. All the stories get archived at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. through our partnership with StoryCorps, and we created the first ever Muslim American Heritage Database. That's very important because 100 years from now, people can go do research. What was it like being Muslim at the time of, Trump? So
just you're advising the Chicago Historical Museum how to archive Muslim stories. So that's impressive.
Right.
They saw that what you put in the Library of Congress, and it's of value to store to Chicago Muslims in the Chicago Historical Society. There's going to be an exhibit, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is a new project since the first ever project. It's called Chicago Muslim, and we announced it at our gala this past Tuesday. So in 2019, fall 2019, Chicago History Museum is going to produce the first ever exhibit on Chicago Muslims, and we're project advisors. It's an oral history, project, but even though we're collecting, the audio, it's going to get digitally, archived. We're going to work on, putting some objects, while we're playing, the audio. So perhaps, someone's talking about a particular dish or particular recipe or particular dress, so we'll have that, object or image. We're looking into things such as, artificial, AR or, or AI, sorry. Yeah. And virtual augmented reality. That's what I meant. There you go. Yeah, AR. And so we're looking at that type of technology where people can just put things on and maybe interview certain individuals, but it's all through technology. But we're still early, in the process. The important part right now is to get as many stories as possible. So with the museum, there's one notable Chicago Muslim in there, and that's the gentleman who built the Sears Tower, Fawzullah Rahman, and the first model.
What is his name again?
Fawzullah Rahman. He's
Rahman.
Bangladeshi
Okay.
American, and he's considered the father of modern day structural engineering. Yeah. So there's and that's a famous Chicago Muslim, but I want to get the stories of
Sears Tower used to be the tallest building in the world. For those, we're proud of that. But we got sidestepped.
Now it's called the Willis Tower, but
Willis Tower.
if you're a Chicagoan,
You still saw
you
the
call
Sears Tower.
Sears Tower, yeah,
That's right.
forever.
Yeah.
So I want to pivot a little bit, Dominic. You just finished writing a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can
Yeah,
you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I wrote a book about 10 years ago, a tips book, and it was how to go healthy through the seasons, and where to emphasize different things like prevention in the fall and weight loss, maybe in the summer, et cetera, when you're more active, et cetera. And it just a strategy and some fun tips. It's a little bit more lyrical and fun, So I wanted to take a deep dive because I thought, well, maybe I learned a few things over the years, and I've been in practice for about 15 years, believe it or not. And I want to give back a little bit, and healthcare is tough. It's expensive and it's hard to budget. It's hard to find insurance. Insurance is skyrocketing for everybody. And I want to talk about self-health and what you can do for yourself. When I was young, my father would say, "Hey, just wear a T-shirt at night." When I felt, when I felt a little cough coming on, and what he was trying to do was instill some thought about you can take care of the small stuff. Take care of the small stuff, and he did not instill hypochondriacs in any of his sons because and we had a degree of toughness and things. And and I had that bias in medicine to some degree, when I first came in, and I had to. I was empathetic and everything, but self-health is just knowing where your weaknesses are. For example, do you have stress in your life? You got your head in order first. Do you have a fitness issue? Do you have a weight issue? What are your priorities? And the doctor can help with that. You can probably a lot of my patients are able to prioritize. I prioritize with them. I set goals with them. I sit down. That's what a doctor does, helps organize their health. So I wrote a book that they can do that, and they can focus on their weakness on self-health. But also, I think people needed a resource guide, a pocket guide for those other things outside of just health in general, but the health system, healthcare, hospitals, what they do, what emergency rooms, when to go to urgent care, when to go to the Minute Clinic. For example, chest pain, you might not want to go to the Minute Clinic right away because they'll tell you go onto the ER because chest pain you don't want to fool around with. It could be your heart. It could be a serious heart issue. There's certain things in the book that talks about that, how to triage different medical conditions. Another thing I want to talk about that in the fall I like to focus on. We're in the fall, and it's a reorganization time. And, we want to kind of get that checkup, and everything, and also organize some support because winter's coming, I think,
What happens in the winter?
Well, we're in a temperate climate, and by the way, they say winter makes people deep. If that's the case, then people in Chicago are way deep. They're deep because we have a really, really tough winter. Okay, but so it's cold and we get cabin fever. We stay in more, and you get loopy by end of January, February when the temperature gets down. Sometimes to -10 with the wind chill coming off the lake. So you want to prepare for that isolation time, that everything. You need support, like the 80s commercial and AT&T, reach out and touch somebody. Get that health buddy who can help with your fitness goals, perhaps, or whatever your weaknesses are. If you have anxiety, stress, someone you can talk to. Just simply someone you can talk to on the phone or in person.
In your book, you mentioned that person as a health buddy.
Health buddy, right. So health buddy basically is someone, you might want to choose a health buddy that has some knowledge in what you're weak in. For example, if you're not, I have friends that are workout fiends and they get home gyms, and they know all the protein you need to have as you work out, and the creatine, et cetera, to build muscle and whatever, and how to get aerobically fit. You might, if you have a weakness in fitness, you want to choose a health buddy that has a strength in fitness, and you watch each other. Now, maybe you have a strength, perhaps in stress management, or you're a calmer counselor, and they may have
people say I can see through them.
There we go. That's true. Yeah. And so you want to choose someone that can complement you and track you, and track your fitness goals, talk to you, and just stay on top of you, and just some tough love when you need it, So
yeah, accountability,
right? So yeah. So we're starting this little podcast here, and we don't know exactly where we're going. We're just kind of organic here, and we want to open it up to people, what we think is important today, and in general, we want to talk more about how we can connect more, and to make everybody's life better, to make your life more meaningful, and to improve the human connections. Like I said, I just got back on a trip in Colorado. I have a nice connection to Colorado people through a friend of a friend, and now I have this nice community in Colorado. I'm going to go back. You're connecting up with real human connections. It really helps, I think, a happier life, certainly a healthier life. I've seen that through the years. People who have support, the more support, more integrative support, you have, I think you're going to be a lot healthier. And maybe more successful. That informational support you might need, to do investing or to do that startup, whatever you need. You need that, support of all types here. So we're going to, open it up. Any other suggestions you all have, how to improve those human connections and support, let us know. And any other health information you can find on my little clearinghouse website. Has a general website for health and wellness, holistic health and wellness.
What is it called?
It's well. I'm corny like this.
All right. Is it one L, two L's?
One L, WL, 9 letters, well.com.
Oh, that's excellent. I mean, it's almost time for the holidays, so I think this is the best time to reach out to loved ones. Yeah, focus on your support system. But wondering in terms of the audience, what's the one thing that they are going to do in the fall in order, to organize, themselves, especially before the holidays? So that's the question for the audience, and I think I'll end it there. Share your story with Mala. Our website is www.malanational.org. That's MALA national.org. And if you want to email us directly, you can email us at info@malanational.org.
Thanks, Max.
Yeah, thank you.